Okay. So we're calling it to order. This is the August 12th meeting of the Livingston, Montana Conservation Board. Hi, guys. Let's see. The board members in attendance I see are myself, Michael DeCellis, the chair. We've got Jonathan Hedinger, the secretary, and Bill Edwards, the vice chair. Danielle and Amy have, Danielle Miska and Amy Bowser have both bowed out for today due to scheduling conflicts, but have contributed mightily to the things we're going to talk about today. We also have an invited guest, Lexi, who is the Energy Corps virtuoso that works with the city and the county, who's also been invited to contribute and help us with the dark skies stuff on our agenda. So the first thing is we've had a few working meetings. In fact, every working meeting since a while back, or every meeting that we've had since a while back has been a working meeting, but we have not had an official meeting where we can actually approve minutes from the 4/29 meeting. So I thought I'd pull those up briefly and let us glance at them and, if possible, approve those minutes. And we have a massive storm rolling in. So if you hear any weirdness behind me, that's where that comes from. You see the minutes I have up on the screen? Yay or nay?
Yay.
All right. So these were sent a long time ago by Jonathan, but we never actually approved them. This was the growth policy letter that we sent. So we discussed a bunch of changes. See, we can be as brief or as detailed about reviewing these meetings minutes as you'd like.
I move that we approve the minutes.
I second it.
All right. Motion seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. By unanimous, we approve the minutes. Good fun. So thank you. The next thing, we don't have anybody who's called in from the public right now, so I usually try to, but I want to just note for the record that this is the public comment period. It's important. Lexi, we'll get to you in a second because you're an invited guest. The agenda items we have on the docket today are a review of our dark skies document and outreach survey, the ordinance text, which is going to be the Lexi show since Danielle is in here. And then the biggest thing that we should just think about today is we really need to move this task forward, right? I mean, we've had COVID has created a little bit of a stumbling block for us, but there's really no reason now that we can't just kind of just get this dark sky win under our belt. And I think I'm really excited about the next moment or the next step in this, which is we have some draft ordinance text, we have an outreach plan, let's execute, and then let's see how it flies, because it's going to be the prototype for all the other things that we're going to do coming up, which are probably more, which might be more contentious than the dark sky ordinance, but we don't know yet. Okay. So the first thing, well, I'd open up to you guys. What do y'all want to review first? What do you think is the best? We have two agenda. Essentially, we need to look at our outreach stuff, which is really our output today. So what's our outreach strategy? How are we going to get the Dark Skies FAQ document and the survey out? What's our process to do that? And then let's execute on it. That's really the output for today. But really clear to that is also we need the draft ordinance text to start circulating it with people. So I would recommend that we review the ordinance text first.
Sounds good.
Okay.
The outreach survey, is that what you're saying then?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Right.
I've got it in front of me.
So I think what I'll do is pull up the ordinance text that Lexi's worked on, let her sort of give us a tour. Lexi and Danielle have worked on this offline. And then if it's okay, Lexi, give you the floor, and then let you kind of do your presentation and guide us through what you've done, and then we can ask questions and comment on it. Sound good?
Yeah. Fine.
All right, let me share this. All right, here we go. Lexi, the floor is yours.
Right.
Would you give us a tour?
Yeah. Your screen's kind of ugly for me, but it might be just my fault. It's like long and skinny.
Oh,
but
yeah,
anyway.
it is. Yeah, it is ugly. I will. Yep, give me a second. I can fix that.
Okay.
A little better?
Much better.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so this is the draft. So if we scroll down, the title's the same, the purpose and intent. We added a couple things, but it's largely the same as what it was with the original City of Livingston lighting ordinance. And then the same with definitions. It's about the same, but we've added a few more. And then there are some pictures in here now as well, if you continue to scroll. So we've got like a little image for a foot candle. And then keep scrolling.
Yeah, that's fantastic, actually. I don't know if there's a provision in the Muni Code stuff to put, no, there has to be a provision to put images in. Never mind. Let's just keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. That's
yeah,
great.
I mean, all I did for now was just to cite them because I don't know how it works. And then the same thing with formatting. Like, we worked really hard on formatting, but at the same time, like, I have no idea what kind of formatting goes on when it gets on the internet. I don't know.
Yeah.
This image is a good one from the guide, but we're hoping that one of our members can find a better image that is just like better dimensions, because this one's just really tall and skinny that just shows the full shielding.
Okay.
And then if we keep scrolling, there's another image. And Michael, you received a presentation, either you attended or you received a presentation from the Montana chapter of the Dark Sky.
Yes, ma'am. I did.
Yeah, scroll down a little bit. Yeah, so I took this image, and I think I have like one more image maybe from there. So as of right now, I kind of cited it, but it's like a little bit of a funky document. So
yep,
just that's why the comments there.
Yeah, thank you.
And then,
I will do my best to find that citation and make it a little more official.
Yeah,
that actually looks, that actually looks pretty good. I think
I use Word, like the tool, the citation tool in Word for everything.
Sure, great.
And I looked at the document. It's just there wasn't a date or like an author, so.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
So we keep scrolling and we have the zoning section, and this one needs a little bit more work as it is right now. Danielle suggested that we might want a little bit of text at the beginning, just introducing, I guess, why or what the zoning is all about. And then this table here is almost all the text from the, so that's where the intro would go, a little bit of intro on the zoning.
Sure.
And then this is all the text from the model lighting ordinance, and then on the far right column is the text from the example or easy guide that's on the left side. If you guys remember scrolling through that document.
Yeah.
There was the right side was the ordinance and the left side was how to and helping you. So we have that text in there as well. And then what we had all decided together as a group for the corresponding Livingston zones are on the left right there.
Yeah.
And keep scrolling. Okay, so here's bug rating. So as you can see in the highlighted section, in pages 26 through 33 in the model lighting ordinance, they talk about bug ratings. And I read about it when I was studying for the lead exam, because it's the USGBC has a bunch of stuff about bug rating. So you can see in the comment on the right, I have a link. So the table I created has zones. So the zones on the far left correspond with the model lighting ordinance zones. So not our city of Livingston, RH or P or whatever, just the MLO ones.
Yeah.
So
these three here.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And then the two right columns are all from USGBC. You can see the citation in the caption. They're just about.
Oh, Lexi, we lost your audio. Nope. Yep. While she's rejoining, is there any comment about this draft ordinance? One thing that I thought of is that it would be, I think, important before we send out draft stuff to have this intro to zoning complete.
One comment I had was could you scroll down?
Yes, sir.
Right on all these Livingston zoning codes,
Yes.
we hardly have, a lot of the zoning districts aren't included in that. So
Yeah, it's a good point. We did include, we were a little bit more comprehensive on the previous meeting. Let me take a look where we discussed that.
Then I was wondering, since this is a zoning code change potentially, is this something that usually state law regulates how you make those changes, and you have to have public hearings and such?
Yeah, it really, state law does. So that's where I think, that's where we have to have, oh, sorry, I had somebody joining in here. Oh, that's Lexi again. We had to, you're right. We did have there are some state law considerations. I mean, at the very least, I believe this is going to turn into a zoning overlay, and that overlay is absolutely, something that needs to be reviewed, recommended by the zoning commission, and then created for some kind of a package or recommendation going to the commission, and then the commission has to make sure that it works. So I think that's the stage where we are, Jonathan. I don't want to jump the gun too much. Maybe we should let Lexi finish the tour, but I think where this is the way to think about this is, what's our rollout order? on this, and I think spoiler, my recommendation is that the very next step is to go to the city and present to them what we're going to do, what we're going to recommend, make sure that, any issues that they see with jurisdiction around zoning and that sort of thing is managed, and then go to the commission as well, because we may have to adjust our approach if that's not feasible. I think it is. But I have done a little bit of research on the side. I do think that it is. I think this is totally appropriate and okay. But yeah.
Are we talking about falling in line with any possible state statutes that relate to this?
Yes, sir. That's right.
All right. Then one way of doing that is to contact one of our local representatives, Lori, for instance, and to ask to have it checked through the LSO, which is the office that works with them. And they may call it something else in this state. That's what they call it in Wyoming.
Yeah.
And anyway, if she requests that, as I understand correctly, or at least we can talk to her about it if we want to. She can ask them to see that this does fit in, and it isn't, none of the things we're suggesting are contrary to what the state law is. But I don't know, that's one route that we could follow to get that to the state, but you may have other thoughts about that too.
Well, Bill, I think that's a fantastic suggestion. I don't think that we have to pretend like we're completely on our own here, though. I feel like we should talk to the city, see what their take on it is, and then if we see any doubt, that we go ahead and pursue that path.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Get in touch with.
I think she'd be interested in this and willing to do it too, because I think that's kind of down her alley. I think she's interested in these kinds of things.
You mean Lori?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Lexi, the floor is yours. We can keep going.
Okay. Everyone can hear me now?
Oh, actually, Lexi, one thing that came up while you were rejoining is Jonathan asked where the other zones are. So, which is true. We do need to address.
We don't have, because we did. Wait,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying we do need to address every zone in our zoning book from the get-go. And we did make that list, and I will find it if.
Okay, because I thought that, I think you were taking notes and Danielle was at the same time, but if she missed any, then yeah, we definitely.
Yeah, I was. Let me try to find that while you talk.
Yeah, or just either do that or comment it, like open it with Google Docs and comment it that it's a to-do item. Okay, so back on the bug stuff. So the two columns that I had included were uplight and then that maximum allowable luminaires above the horizontal, which maybe is glare. I don't know which BUG it is, but anyway, there are more ratings that are relevant, but the tables are way bigger. So that's why the link is there. We need someone to help us get all the information into here and then make it a lot more concise and easy to read. So yeah, and then a quick little.
What is Lexi? What does bug stand for?
Backlight, uplight, glare. So that's also what. Well, Danielle wrote this needs definition for. So the other thing we wanted to highlight is the reason that this is valuable is because a lot of lights when you go shopping have these ratings. So it's just another way to make it easier on how to prescriptively tell someone what to do. In addition to reading and knowing like what you're not allowed to have or lumen maximum, blah, blah, blah. This is more help on making those decisions.
Okay, so I'm gonna actually document that here because I think that's really wonderful for people to understand.
And Danielle and I discussed that it is relatively new, but we think that it's at least inclusive. For instance, when we scroll down to the bottom of this document, we'll see that our original Livingston lighting ordinance had something written about incandescent bulbs, which we've already discussed doesn't really stand the test of time. The same with the Red Lodge ordinance when we discussed it. They had lighting types or bulb types on there, and those are specific to LEDs. So we're just trying to be as inclusive as possible.
Great.
Okay, so moving on to lighting standards. This is like, you know, the rules. Yeah, so you can scroll through.
See, so we've got directional shielding. We've got the off-site glare.
So our intent, I guess, at this moment is, my intent is to show you guys and explain to you what you're looking at, and then assign everyone this homework assignment to read it.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I pay, you know, like so I was paging through this a little bit, the other version before. But even as we're on this, I think for clarification, because one thing, and Bill and Jonathan, please guys, like ask for clarification kind of openly on this as we go through, because we're getting to the point where we need to start sending this ordinance out for people to review, and we need to know why and what and all that. So my question on B is how do you define glare? It says glare or light directed off-site is prohibited. Is that any light? Is that what's the level of light that's allowed? Yada yada. You want to comment on that, Lexi? Oh, your phone dropped off again.
But those are good questions if you can hear me responding.
Yeah.
So you should add that as a
Okay.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed.
Okay. Shielded fixtures. Lexi, are there any sections where we define light trespass? I mean, this one's great. Light levels should not exceed 1 10-foot candle 20 feet from the abutting property line as a direct result of on-site lighting.
Oh, you have to let me in. Sorry. I would have to say look in the definitions to see if light trespass is in there, because I don't remember.
Cool. So I think the light level, off-site glare, looks like it's defined pretty well in the next one. And then,
What kind of bird is that?
yeah, that's right. It does sound like a bird.
I I don't know what it
Oh, here, I was gonna mute. Let's see. I muted you.
Okay,
Now your
you
phone's
can hear
coming.
me?
Yeah, now your
Okay,
phone's coming
maybe
through.
I left my computer on. My bad.
Um,
Okay, but that's another fair point. If this section seems like a definition, it should be moved to the definition because that's bulky.
okay. Well, I think also just some kind of nuance is that is the light level specification in the lighting standards, is that something that applies to all zones?
Yeah. Or I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I had that question. I don't know. It's hard working on this, and like it takes like 2 hours to get into it, and then I know what I'm talking about, and then I don't work on it for 3 weeks, and then I'm
Right.
like, what even is this?
Yeah, totally.
So
Okay, that's good. This is fine. These are just questions that will, I mean, I think we need to move forward with starting to circulate the idea of zones. What's pretty clear to me is that we may need to have a show and tell on the ordinance after another iteration with anybody at the city staff that's or even the commission that is interested, so that we can answer questions. I think after this meeting, meaning like we need to try to address some of these things as we're going through, which is exactly what this meeting's for. So, okay, so
okay, Michael, if you don't mind, I want to go a little bit faster because I feel like my phone's just going to drop a call again.
you bet. Keep it going.
Okay, so let's move on to the next section because that's a pretty picture. Well, that table came from our original lighting ordinance again. So there's our comments on it, like maybe it's bulky, I don't know, maybe it can be condensed into something else. That's where that stands. And then we can keep scrolling.
Any comments? My thought is that this needs to be flushed out based on lighting zones.
Yeah, and also
Like,
there's a pretty long exemption section that covers a lot. But also any comments you have, you can do for homework, and I'm just trying to say, do we need to discuss everything right this second?
well, unfortunately, we're limited.
Simple.
We're limited because we need to have everything under public inquiry. So we don't need to discuss everything, but we do need to identify what questions we need to go and answer, so that we can assign some of these to each other and then go and tackle it, is really where it comes from. So either we can add comment. I would say we add comment in here, and then we tackle it that way. So we do need the feedback, because we can't.
It feels like Danielle and I are a little bit maxed out on how much we've put into this, and we'd appreciate any help on resolving the few issues that are left and whatever new issues arise.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think my takeaway just so far is it doesn't really seem like it's near completion, because it doesn't really seem like it's describing what what the limits are. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff left, and I thought this was going to be a lot closer to taking to the city. So I just think that I mean, I just feel like we have a lot of uncertainty on here, and I just kind of, and I guess we'll talk about that more with public outreach later.
Yeah, because I agree, but let's review this because I want to add comments to this. Again, what's nice is we're in an official meeting. We can talk about whatever we want, and we can review this stuff and provide comment. Because of sunshine laws, it's really hard for us to provide group comment on this stuff when we're out of session. So let's just slog through this a little bit more so that we know, so we have enough time to get eyes on each of these sections, and then we'll move on to the outreach stuff. Because I agree. I think this needs Lexi and Danielle have brought this along to something that we can basically, we're in the phase where you tear everything completely apart, right? So you're always in two phases of something. You have the first phase where you build everything up and no idea is a bad idea and all that kind of stuff. And then you get to a certain point and you transition to the every idea is a bad idea. So you can just tear stuff apart and provide critical feedback and it's all negative and yada, yada, yada. That's where we are now. We just need to take this and move it across the finish line by taking feedback, mostly critical feedback from right now, addressing those issues so that we can get it to that point, Jonathan, where we can start circulating it. So let's keep slugging through. So Canopy Lighting, Lexi, we've got some specs on canopies. Any word on impact of this one, the parking lots? Looks like you put the reference in here from the Red Lodge Municipal Code.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where they got this?
No. Didn't we already have this discussion? They worked on this like 12 years ago or 2012, one of those numbers, and none of us knew what they did, but it was possible that we could ask someone.
Yep.
I mean, is that necessary that we need a scientific study to say why they came up with something?
Well, I think the question he's asking is that they get this from somewhere else, or would it originate with their own idea? Isn't that what you're asking?
I think, yeah, meaning I think that this is fine to take to, say, the city or to Northwestern Energy or to somebody else and say, okay, here's our spec. Does that work? Like, does that quadruple your cost? Is that, is this a reasonable thing? Are we getting the 80-20 rule here? Does literally every lighting that exists meet this spec and this isn't quite what we're looking for? These are the questions. So it's fine to have it. It's good to have a number because then we can start asking questions about the number. So I would say to lighting purchases, right? So it's like, okay, I am insert business or entity name here. I need to comply with this parking lot, car dealership, and industrial lot discussion. Statute. What do I have to do? What does that mean to me in terms of my lighting choice? So I think that's something we should talk about for the outreach. Okay, so building entrances. Same deal. Rules written here and introduce table. Okay, so Lexi, you're going to introduce the table?
Okay, I just want to say right now that I'm feeling really defensive, and that is one of my flaws. So I just want to remind everyone how much time Danielle and I spent on this and how difficult it was. And we really thought that it was really close to being finished, and I understand if it's not. But I also don't want every single comment that comes out of this to be another thing that Lexi and Danielle need to fix.
Okay,
I don't
so
think that it's,
yeah, thanks because it's really important. One, unbelievable gratitude that you are spending your time doing this. You're doing this for our city, and we really appreciate that. Like, this is not easy stuff. The other comment that I would make is, we need to have this. I'm jumping on this. So anything that I add in here, if I don't specifically ask you to do, I will be doing it.
okay.
Is the other thing. Like, we're not gonna just sit here and make a bunch of demands and then have you, like, you know, just like come back and tell us when you're done kind of thing. We're in this together.
Okay.
So there might be a couple of things. And then as far as the process phase, I feel, I hope it's, you know, I know that I'm doing this because I'm going through and saying, well, we need this. This is an incredible compilation. I mean, what it takes to get us to a point where we can tear something apart is non-trivial. I've been part of a lot of design. I've been part of countless design processes, and the amount of work it takes to where people can start criticizing it is unbelievable. And so again, just gratitude, because like, and also gratitude for being open about feeling defensive. My gosh, like, that's freaking awesome. I hope
I
that
just want to
feels,
make sure, I guess, we're all on the same point of like where we think this document is, and where Danielle and I think it is now is it's back in the team's court, and we're all now working on it. And then, I mean, at some point we can actually assign things, but we're all together now and figuring out what's wrong with it. What do we need? What doesn't make sense?
cool. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
let's see.
remember where that came from.
Oh, well, it was because it was just going in like, what about this? What
Oh,
about
no,
this?
I meant this table.
Oh, sure.
I'm trying to remember where that table came from, but then Danielle's comment is, let's ask the board what they think about gas stations, because I know we had a long conversation about gas stations last time.
Yeah.
And that's like really extensive and possibly unnecessary, the amount of like detail that table goes into just for gas stations. So think on that.
Did you, Lexi, when you were reviewing things, did you see any other extensive gas station lighting tables? Like,
when you say reviewing things, what do you mean?
Like specifically either the Red Lodge Municipal Code, or the dark sky, I don't remember seeing any about specifically.
I know, I don't remember any in the MLO, and I don't remember where that table came from at this point, because I really was trying to cite every single source I had.
Yep.
But here we are with another one. Oh, but then my comment says, oh, wrong table, darn it. Darn it. I don't know.
Yep.
I'm going to guess it's Red Lodge since that's cited one above. But, I mean, there's also the fact that it's so extensive, it's possible we can just delete the whole thing and, like, pick one of those book handle values. So.
Okay. Let's.
And then the height. What?
Yeah. So Jonathan and Bill, I'd be interested in you weighing in on this, because I do feel like we need to provide some specific guidance on service station or gas pumps, but I think I tend to agree. This is really
Well, we discussed last time the fact that we have gas stations in sort of like two different zones in the town. Like we have some of them on Park Street near downtown, but then we also have the ones near Albertsons. It's like excessively lit. But then we also need to consider that flammable liquid and the tankers that fill them up at night and all of those like safety and hazard things. But yeah.
Well, someone must be doing work like this for stations when they're built, doing illumination studies for them somewhere. I mean, they must have some standards that they're using now for in the construction phase, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, and like what Danielle does for her work, like is lighting and sometimes extremely commercial things, and I don't know if that necessarily means she knows. I would think she has to know codes. I don't know.
My sister specifies commercial lighting down in Texas, and I think the answer is you have engineers that like think about it and they try to create like good lighting, right? But they're not worried about typically dark sky ordinances unless they have to be.
Yeah.
Well, so I feel like maybe there's at least a minimum somewhere, like the IECC or one of those international codes probably has minimums at least somewhere that engineers keep in mind when they do that.
Yeah, I was just looking at it thinking, you can't do it, but I mean, if you said that you had at least one candle power for each of these things, you'd have them all somewhat lit. But why, for instance, building facade with light surroundings or pump island area with light surroundings, that generally that would be where you'd have your most light. You'd have the 10-foot candles there because that's where the customer is going to be and using the pump and so forth. I mean, some of this is fairly logical from that standpoint, but it's very hard for me to try to translate lighting into foot candles just from my, short exposure to it.
Maybe one approach to update this table, if we did want to specify this much, is to go into essentially, it says dark surroundings and light surroundings. So we can talk about, we can talk about, I mean, we could put in here some statement about what's the lighting zone of adjacent properties, and that defines whether it's dark or quote dark or light surroundings. Because if I was trying to specify this, if I was an engineer trying to specify lighting for a gas station, I would have a really hard time doing it with this spec. How do I know what a dark surrounding is? But I mean, beyond that, I mean, maybe we do need this level of detail. I don't know. If we really want to control what gas stations are doing, I think maybe that's the approach. But let's.
Well, I still think that station, like you can think about them on their property line, I guess. Just like we talk about the trespass. I mean, as long as it's, X amount of foot candles aren't trespassing onto adjacent land whether that land is residential or commercial is a different foot candle. I feel like that's good enough. And then the same thing with glare, just because a lot of them are on really busy streets as well. I can't imagine you need to like specify the pump island versus like just the overall what comes out, what actually trespasses, I guess.
Okay, so maybe
and that's also not from Red Lodge.
yeah, so okay, so maybe I mean, what's our temperature on this? Because Daniel, I mean, Lexi, that's a fairly compelling point. Maybe we shouldn't.
I mean, if you suggested that we, like, you know, if you went into edit mode and suggested to delete the whole table, the highlighted text is still there that says rules written here,
right,
about service and gas stations. So we still need to fill it in, and that's that.
well, I'm just wondering if service stations and gas pump area lighting is even a thing that we need to articulate. I mean, we beyond, I mean, we could put it as a section in the code, but say explicitly it needs to comply with
Like commercial or something. Like,
yeah, well, highway commercial is I think most of the gas stations that I know of, in fact, I don't know of any gas stations that aren't highway commercial in the city.
but I'm saying whatever we say that our commercial, like, you are a commercial building, and whatever the land is next to you, you know, like we already know what zone you're in according to our lighting thing. So it's.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's move on, but let me see about this. Let me just get this. Omit table. And for HC, that's 2. Okay, let's move on. We really need to get through this.
All right. So that's pretty much the end of that.
So then we have a
highlighted means we need to have an actual numerical value.
okay. So all street lighting must be configured with directional shield. Great.
So a lot of these prohibited were already in our ordinance, and I think we may have added 1 or 2 from the MLO.
So let's see. Yeah, I think this might be. So it's funny because the streetlights thing is, I think as long as it complies with this light level thing, then I guess this, well, street lighting's hard because it's not really, yeah, I think we need more on it. So need more because street lighting is its kind of its own beast, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is by definition trespassing. So it means explicit specification. Okay.
Which is probably including a height.
Yeah, I'd say light levels, light color.
Yeah.
Height and hours of operation. Okay. Skyward light prohibited. Unshielded lighting. Mercury vapor prohibited. Laser lights prohibited. When projected above the horizontal. Hold on, this is problematic. What about Christmas light projectors? Okay, let's keep moving.
I think
Okay.
there might be holiday in the exemption, but I don't know if it includes laser.
Oh, lights used for holiday decorations.
Yeah, but if, I don't know, so maybe you should comment that and say like it needs, comment on the holiday thing and say that it needs to include lasers used for holiday, because I don't know if light
No,
is
I think
enough.
no, I think that resolves it.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, like I said, a lot of the exemptions were already there. We may have added one or two.
Okay.
Yeah, we definitely did add a few.
Recreational facilities. I mean, this is problematic, right?
I think that's what it said before. I feel like that's maybe what the MLO says too.
Hmm.
And remember we even had the discussion about the fairgrounds, the arena lights, like they're going to be bright, but I mean, how many times a year are those even on?
Yeah. Historic street lights. Yeah, that's a good comment, Lexi.
Yeah, but that's something Danielle will probably have to answer on, like what even lumens and kelvins to compensate for the foggy.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about, that in our old one, and it says incandescent, which is not very forward thinking or useful.
This incandescent one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just need to replace this.
Yeah.
With
I mean, if the whole discussion is frosted globe, I don't know I don't know if it even needs to be there. I guess. Is that why you're in an exception? Because you're actually a frosted globe light on the exterior? Because technically you wouldn't be allowed anyway because you're not shielded. Right?
I mean, this is complicated. I am sure that there are properties that that would use this. I mean, the other, like, you know, so one example is, another example is the Murray, right? And others, they have marquee signage.
Well, does that go into, well, actually, we have a weird section on signs below that's very confusing. That's not really a section. So I think that would go into marquees.
Okay.
Unless it's also a laser, but I guess it's not. It's a halogen. I don't know what it is. The lighting control thing came from the MLO because they want you to have a lot of controls, like for security lighting and some outdoor stuff and stuff. So, but it's confusing and it's like weird that it's its own section, so it doesn't flow that well right now. So, but that's where it came from for right now.
Yeah, that's fine. That's great. Does this respond to lighting control requirements that are up here? Meaning like,
Yeah, I think so. Because both of those came from the MLO.
sure. Just making sure.
So I'm sure.
Lighting standards, light trespass, directional shielding, permitted hours. Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay. So basically 11 p.m. is the time that
Yeah.
the city
And that's
needs
what we
to
have
start.
already, but there's exceptions for your security lights, but I feel like I read something that said like 5 minutes or something like that. So right above where you were just now, scroll up a little bit,
Yes.
is that awkward sign section. So the MLO recommends we have our own like sign thing, but they don't actually give you guidance on how to do it. So I'm guessing I got that from the MLO, but it's not that helpful. It's kind of confusing. So yeah. Oh, just kidding. Came from Bozeman, I guess.
So I think, yeah, so this is interesting. I mean, basically what we're specifying is that the Murray has to shut off their marquee lighting at 11 o'clock.
Or if they're still open, because it says, well, no, it doesn't.
Oh, businesses that, lighting reduction is
Operate
not required
24/7,
for
but they
businesses
don't.
that operate on a 24-hour basis.
Well, maybe it should be like when your business closes and you have to within an hour, just like events.
Okay.
Can you just write bars on
Yeah.
there so that I instantly know what you're talking about?
Yep.
Okay.
And these are just questions, right? I'm not trying to weigh in where it should be one way or another. I'm just making sure we understand what the impact of this thing is.
Yeah.
Non-conforming street lights.
So
Okay.
if you look at the red comment, so Danielle notes that these sections, the following couple sections, are all identical to how we had them before in Livingston. So, yeah.
So I think one of the challenges and one of the things we're going to need to point out is that these have not been replaced.
Well, they just hired a code enforcement officer. Does that apply to lighting?
You mean, is the code enforcement officer going to go write tickets to the city?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good question. So,
I mean, it says 2017 also. Like if you started writing tickets now, you had so much time to do it. Or at least a warning, I don't know.
Okay. Has this changed from the current one?
No, the next three have not.
Okay. Public nuisance.
I did have a comment on the 1811, which is, I think that the fine should be very much more significant.
Sure, warning.
Yeah, and like just like above, like with the dates, like I don't even know how we make these decisions. And then Danielle's comment was maybe we ask Faith, because like I mean the council approved the fines. I don't know.
We would probably just ask Courtney Llewellyn.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Michael, can you add a comment in the bibliography?
Yes.
Because I just looked at Red Lodge. So can you comment on the Red Lodge one?
Yes. What would you like to say?
I think it's supposed to be 60 and not 70, or the opposite. One moment. I'm clicking on it right now. It's 70, not 60.
Okay, got it. 12.4.5.70, not 60. Cool.
Great.
Okay. Well, that was illuminating. See what I did there? Anybody? No.
I'm here, but I'm not following very well, not tracking very well.
All right. So yeah. So to recap what we just did, we reviewed the entire dark sky ordinance draft and identified the holes before we go to get feedback from the city on their comments on how they think this doesn't comply with what basically we can do. So that's related to a lot of zoning stuff. Also a bunch of questions and things that may need to get flushed out. And so those are all in the comments here, and thankfully they're also publicly reviewed, right?
Is it legal for us to ask the board members to read over this and leave Google comments, or possibly solve some things on their own, not working together or anything?
No, we can. Yeah, good question, Lexi. We can assign tasks to people, but we can't. I mean, passing things back and forth to more than. Well, we currently have 5 board members, so passing things back and forth between more than 2 board members is a no-no. If we're outside, and that's what
Google essentially is. Commenting is that.
Yeah, commenting on Google documents outside of board meetings for more than 2 board members at a time is a no-no. And it's the spirit of the law, the spirit of the law is that you don't do comments back and forth because that constitutes deliberation, which needs to be done in the public space in front of the public, just like we're doing here.
Okay.
So that's why I just requested that we drag us through this entire ordinance, because I'm trying to flag the things that need to get addressed that can be addressed by a smaller group.
Okay.
And so my recommendation is to move forward, to jump onto these issues with probably the best people for this, which would be Danielle, myself, and you. And you're not on the board, so for the numbers perspective, it doesn't count, which is convenient for us. So after this review and any comment from Jonathan and Bill, I think what I'd like to do is just recommend that we take this and we iterate this ordinance again, and then attempt to adopt it in some capacity, either in the next board meeting. I would prefer to have a a board meeting where we talk about our outreach plan, then we essentially finish this ordinance text as a draft where we think it's far enough along that we can start sharing it with people and ask them to provide us feedback. And I think in order to do that, we should probably have a special issues only board meeting that's like 30 minutes. If we can pull it off in a couple of weeks, where we, or maybe 3 weeks or so, where we take a couple of weeks to try to address the issues that are in here, circulate the ordinance, and then allow board members to read it, and then start circulating it with the city. The alternative is that we can just decide right now that we're going to try to push the comments that we've added to this document along as far as we can, and then just go ahead and get started getting feedback from the city and the commission without reviewing it one more time. Jonathan and Bill, what's your temperature on that?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I can't follow this very well, partly because we're moving back and forth through it, and I don't have enough of a background in this particular area to follow along very well. And to a certain extent, the moving back and forth with the colors and everything is starting to get to my eyes too.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but it's probably because I'm an old man, that's why. But and so it's kind of hard to follow when I'm starting to get a headache from the lights flashing around and moving up and down and back and forth and around and around. But I need to ask a question in regard to the comments you made today, Michael. Are they going to be on the document if we get it printed now?
Yeah. Actually, I was going to suggest that. So maybe what we do is,
well, Michael, why don't you just read, like, when we're done with this meeting, to put ours in the archive and put yours back in the drive.
Yeah. I mean, I'll save this, right?
Yeah. But just archive the one that you originally downloaded and put yours in it so that it's the only choice.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Google Drive works is you can always go back to the previous version anytime.
Well, these are like words, not docs anyway, but so I don't really know, but
it's the same thing.
Okay.
It works the same way. So, but yeah, I was going to suggest, Bill, that maybe I just print this out with the comments intact.
Yeah.
And drop it by for you to review as well.
Well, if I can print it all, I mean, if your comments are still on there, I can reprint it. I mean, I can print it with the comments on it if that's feasible to do.
Yeah, so the way that works.
Oh boy.
I know. You know what? I'll just PDF it and I'll send it to you in an email.
Well, maybe everybody would like it. I mean, I don't necessarily want to be,
No. Actually, I'm printing it out because I'll just include it in the post-meeting email that I send to the group.
Okay, so we can all make copies of the suggested changes then.
Yeah, and I'll include that. I'll make sure that the PDF includes that. Yep, good. That's a great suggestion. Okay.
Well, I mean, I hate to move ahead now, especially with two of the members missing because they didn't get in on this. I don't think it's fair to them for us to proceed that fast. You know, Danielle
Yeah.
has had the experience, but Amy wouldn't have had the experience of knowing what, you know, what the suggestions were that were made today.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. So let's, so we'll do that. We'll, I'll include a PDF of this document, which is good, at the end of from the end of the meeting. That'll be part of the meeting minutes. And then, it'll be something though that with the comments that you can print out and, review further. And in the meantime, we'll try to, Lexi and Danielle and I will try to jump off and address some of these issues as quickly as we can. And then perhaps we can have a follow-on. It's okay. Let's jump off this and get to our outreach, because this is the content that we're pushing with the plan is pretty important. And it's actually something I think that we have a good chance of putting together. Is that all right with everyone if we shift to that next agenda item?
Yeah, so are we just leaving this to make, we're not gonna, or I guess, what are we deciding now? Whether we just talk to the city about this or wait on it to be more in depth? Sorry.
Yeah, it's a good question, Jonathan. I think unfortunately we probably need to touch on this thing again. I'd like to propose that we not take this to the city yet. And then that we, so that, I don't know if we don't really need to even vote on that, because we don't need to really vote on a negative, but that we not take this to the city yet. But I would like to propose that we have a follow-on board meeting to review the ordinance text again. And we could either do that next month, but that feels like a long time from now, but maybe that's when we need to do it.
I think
I
that's
don't know.
fine.
What's that?
I think August is a really busy month, with lots of people trying to squeeze in vacations and
Right.
everything. So I just think, yeah, I think it's fine to just come back to it next month. But I think if we brought it to people now, there'd be a lot more questions than answers. And just, so yeah, I think we should just do it next meeting.
So can I, yeah, so I'll motion to put that on the agenda for the next time. Let's just make that official.
Okay.
Lexi, you still going to be with us?
Technically, I don't think so.
Oh. Well, I knew it
I
was
don't know
coming up. I
if I
didn't know
can
when it
join
was.
meetings when I'm not a resident either.
Oh yeah, there's no restrictions on that.
Okay.
So
Especially if you're an invited guest, which you would be.
So Michael, did you make a motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Yep. Did you second it, Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Yes. So we're gonna for our next meeting, our next official meeting next month, whenever that is. I don't have the date right in front of me. We will essentially take up this with the intention of voting on whether on sending the ordinance text to the city and to the masses. Okay. Let's switch gears if we can to the other agenda item, which is this introduction document. Let me turn off sharing. And I realized I had my notes where, I'm sorry, excuse me, were linked to the wrong version of that, the old version. So let me get into the new version. Okay. And I'll be sharing in just a second. Let me just cue things up.
You got nice lighting on your face, Michael.
Thanks. Been working on it, you know. Spend so much time on this silly
This
Zoom.
coming from a guy who's in a dark dungeon room with one artificial lamp on him.
Yep. I do have a door in this room for the outdoor.
It looks like it's midnight in your room, and all the rest of us are like in broad daylight.
You could turn this off and see if it looks like day.
Yeah, not any better.
So I'm completely in love with the way that this thing was put together, by the way, by Amy, who's not here. And the reason is I think that this document does a great job of trying to use some of the things that we are focused on as the conservation board, and using those angles to describe why we're doing what we're doing with data and backup and reference. So I thought this was really great, and I wanted to put this up here first because I think it's I'd like to make this a little bit, Jonathan, if it's okay to lean on your outreach expertise. This is a lot of good content. How do we get this messaging, these clarifications and some of this into the hands of people that are going to want to read it or need to read it? What do you suggest?
I think just having this be like an accompanied document that you just send out whenever we do it. I think that would be just fine. Just like when you send this out, there's usually like a staff report or something, like is what Michael Cardos will do on
Yep.
And this is kind of like like that, but except it's not staff, obviously, but it's still like, I think that's good. I think we could format it a bit differently, just like, and I could go through and maybe do that because it just is a little paragraphy.
Yep.
But I think it's real. I mean, I looked through it and it looks really good. And I think that if we just like can attach it to stuff, I think that we could just like send it out whenever the other thing is sent out as like a board report or something like that.
So I really like that. I think I'd like to, even before we have, I mean, I'll stop. Bill, have you had a chance to review this enough? Do you think, what's your temperature on this?
Well, I had a couple of small comments to make. And I don't know that it makes any difference. The references are not all referenced in the text. That's not a big deal because I know they were probably used as background information for some of what's in here. I like the introduction. The beginning, the first paragraph, I think is quite good. I don't know whether anybody had any changes to make on that or not, but it seems like it's in good shape. I like the format too because it does have the environment and safety and human health, which are three of the key areas that plus climate and energy. So I think it's in pretty good shape, and I said so at the time. But there are only, if I remember correctly, looking at my notes, there are only 3 citations in the paper itself. The others aren't cited, but that's not a big deal. But I'll throw that out there if anybody wants to comment on it.
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, partly because I've gone through this a few times in my background where, you know, if you cite something, then it should be cited in the paper. But if it isn't cited in the paper, you don't know which part of your document actually refers to that particular citation. In this case, the term reference is being used.
Yes. Oh, that's fair. Which may be kind of the get out of jail free on that one, right?
Well, number 1 is cited, number 5 is cited, number 7 is cited, but the others are not. And I don't know if it's possible to go back and cite them or not. It's not a big deal, but it's just something I happened to pick up as I read through it.
Jonathan, maybe the answer to that is kind of in the, because in order just to move this to completion, and as you suggested, I think that's a phenomenal suggestion. This just gets included as sort of the sheet when we send things out. What do you anticipate changing in terms of format? Would you want to, would you want to kind of edit the text quite a bit just to maybe condense it down? What was your thought there?
Yeah, just make it a little bit more readable. It's just shorter, basically.
Yep.
And probably get rid of the all the citations, but or write them differently, write them in a way that you would for a more easily understandable way. Like, don't have in text citations like that, just say according to a 2004 study or something like that.
Yeah, so turn it into a readable, essentially a newspaper article. Wonder why you would think that. So in that case, Bill, how do you feel about, Amy has basically empowered us. She said, I consider this in the possession of the board now. She said, tear it to pieces. So we can do with this what we want. I would feel very comfortable with letting Jonathan just, work his magic on it.
Sure, that's fine with me.
If Jonathan, if you're willing, because I agree. I think, do we all agree on the utility of this is pretty good? And as you articulated, Jonathan, I think that's what we should do. I just want this, essentially get this box checked and have the communication really good. I also read through it, and I am like, I'm all about the content. I'm really all about the content. But I definitely understand it needs to be, it could probably be made a little bit more readable. So can we, I don't really, I would like to be informed, but I don't really need to weigh in on approving this. Honestly, that's where I am. I don't know how you feel about it, Bill. I would be happy to just empower Jonathan just to finish this up and basically submit it to the board whenever he's done.
I agree. Yep. Jonathan, you're the final editor.
Okay, I can do that.
So I just make a motion to give this into Jonathan's hands and to have him submit the final form as an FYI back to the board. Can I get a second on that? Anybody?
Well, I'll make the motion.
You can make the motion. That's right.
Yeah, I'll make the motion. And Jonathan can second it if he wants.
Sure, I'll second it. Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, cool. So this is in your hands, Jonathan, and this is the last time we'll see it.
Okay, sounds good.
And to be, let's just be clear, make sure we all understand for the record what I believe that motion was, which is to, and I should probably have stated that better before we actually voted on it, but we can rescind it if we need, that you are editing it and then submitting it as an FYI to the board and that we will use this as you articulated as an official board communication about what we're doing, so that we can distribute it to people and explain what we're doing.
Okay.
Because we feel like the content is here and that you're not going to perish any of the content. You're going to edit for readability and punctuality and all that stuff.
Yep.
Okay. Everyone, Bill, I think, is that well articulated? Is that your understanding?
Yeah, of course,
Okay.
It's supposed to be printed out. The motions are supposed to be printed out word for word, but reasonable facsimile of them at least.
Yes, sir. That's why we have Jonathan taking notes instead of my rambling.
Not
notes.
sure I've done the best job today, but that's okay.
Sure enough. Okay. All right. So good. So that's that document. And then we have, thank you, Jonathan. And then the last thing we have to review before we break is the outreach survey. So let me go to that.
Okay, I'll take over for a little bit if you don't mind, just to briefly.
Yes, please do.
Introduce it. Amy and I went over the document, and I'm not sure if she worked with anybody else. I think she worked with, Lexi, did she work with you a little bit on this or not?
On the community survey,
Yeah,
Danielle and I had originally made it. We made like
Yeah.
a really, really rough draft. And
oh, you did,
then
okay.
you and Amy took it over.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
The way this thing is set up, if you haven't had a chance to review it very carefully, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 areas that are mentioned. And demographics, updating city ordinance, residential lighting, commercial business, park, and green special lighting, and then nuisance lighting. So it was visualized that this might be put on the internet or at least somehow put on a computer so that people can take it on the computer. The first part with the demographics sort of follows somewhat like the survey for the growth policy in terms of getting the age and getting some information on the person who's taking the poll, and then updating city lighting ordinances. There are 3 statements there, and the only major comment I guess I would say is by asking people to comment and giving them less than ½ an inch to comment, you're not really giving them as much room as they might need to comment. You can think about that maybe while we're going over this. It's been changed a little bit since the 2 of us went over it, but Lexi, you've had some input into this also apparently then, so do you have any comments on the final document? We could go through it real quickly, but I don't know that that's necessary. I'll leave it up to you whether you want to do that, and we can comment individually on each one or not.
Yeah, I haven't opened this in a long time since I made those original comments, and I trust the rest of you guys. I'm fine with.
What do you think, Jonathan?
I had a couple thoughts on it. When Danielle first asked me about this, I said that it seemed like unnecessary to do a survey, because I don't know how many people care enough to take a survey about this.
Yeah.
But I think the survey looks good, and I think that we could just see if anyone takes it. I did think that the demographics section could potentially turn people off of taking it, or like, but I also didn't know. I think if everyone thinks that's fine, then that's fine. I just like, I don't know. I just, whenever I'm looking at that, I'm like, well, I don't own any of those things. And I'm like, so is the board gonna actually, like, I don't own a residential property, commercial property, or business. So does anyone, will what I say be taken into account? And so that was just one of the thoughts I had, was it could potentially drive some people away, but also I think it looks good.
I really value that comment, Jonathan. I think you're right.
Well, it's partly a matter of how many questions too. That was one of the things that I wondered about. There are 32 of them listed here and that ask for answering. And how long is that going to take, and whether or not people will take the time to do it and do a good job. I don't know. I'm not a pollster expert, so sort of.
No, I think you're also right. Bill, you're right. I think we'll lose. I think whoever's taking this survey will lose them.
I would be shocked if we had 10 responses to this survey.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, is that a challenge, Jonathan? Because you know. Well, how about we table that for a second so that we can talk about what our outreach plan is, and then maybe we can identify how to adjust the survey to meet the plan. Are y'all okay with that? We only have a few minutes left, and I want to, if it's okay, discuss. I mean, that's part of our, our agenda is to adopt outreach tasks.
So yeah, that sounds good. Let's see what that means.
So, let me. So I have suggestions. Let's just start with suggestions, and maybe we can start. Actually, Jonathan, why don't you weigh in on suggestions, since you're the outreach guru in the group?
My thought is this can go to the city next. Like once we get a final document, take it to the city commission, see, or maybe not even the commission, but Michael Cardos, Sharon Holmes, and Courtney Llewellyn, and see how they want to move forward with it. Probably taking it to the commission to have them give us feedback on, yes, this is what we want to do, or no, this isn't what we want to do. And then from there, I thought we could maybe start our outreach, because I'm still uncertain about the path forward with it, because if it's a zoning changes, does that mean that it's going to have to go to the zoning commission? They're going to be the ones that have to approve it. So I guess at this point, I would just like a little more clarity from the city on what that process is, and just kind of take this to the commission, get their feedback, because I know that they had something in mind. I mean, I know Darrell and a couple of people had some things in mind. So this, and then we could do public outreach if they send it. Like I guess, I don't know, unless we think that at that point we just have it finalized and they're going to approve it, but I don't think that's quite what's going to happen. I thought they would send it back and have a few comments, and then we could start some of that public outreach. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, I was hoping basically to come out of this meeting with with an understanding of what we can take to the city to start getting that clarification now. I think that that the draft ordinance itself is probably not there. But I think we could go talk to them about it, just explain what we're doing and make sure that we get, some clarification on the nuances of zoning overlay and all that stuff, right? Because I think that's going to really affect the process here, as you articulated. Bill, what do you think about that?
Well, are you saying to take this document to them then? Or you want to modify it before you take it to them?
I think what I'm saying is we should probably essentially take the, like 1 or 2 pages from the National Dark Sky Association ordinance, draft ordinance thing, print it out, and then just introduce the concept of lighting zones. Like that, hey, we're wanting to update this, I mean, I think that when we start talking about lumens and other stuff, like people are just their eyes are gonna glaze over and they're gonna be like, yeah, whatever, right? Except for maybe Shannon or others that are technically minded. But the concept that we're going to have a dark sky ordinance that takes zones and applies them to or attaches lighting restrictions based on the zoning in the city is something I think we need to give people a heads up on before. I'd very much like to just go have a couple of those conversations this month before we actually have draft ordinance text for them to review.
Well, do you think the survey is still in the works then or not?
Well, so then actually I think the survey is kind of it's a different thing because it's related to the public outreach. And I think surveys are a really important thing. I tend to agree. We'll see what kind of response we get, right? But it's really important that the public feels like they're being asked. I mean, because we care like genuinely about what they want in their city, and so I think with regard to the survey, it's really that's that phase. We'll call it like a phase 2, which would be the public outreach. I mean, I think we need this month to really start workshopping this with the city, maybe to come out with some draft ordinance that we review next month that we're already talked about and have put on the agenda for the next month.
That's fine. The only thing thought I had was we have several environmental groups here. And if we ask them to help promote this by maybe once we get to the survey stage, asking them if they would put it out in their newsletters and so forth and so on for their members, as well as doing it for the general public so people won't come back and say, oh, well, this is biased because you only sent it to the conservation interested groups. So I would say that we would have it available for the general public, plus specifically asking those people in Yellowstone Bend, for instance, to put it in their newsletter and ask them to promote it somewhat. And I think they'd be willing to do that too, as sort of a cooperative outreach. But I would agree. I think the changing of the ordinances probably comes first. And if we want to do those sequentially, that would be and put our effort into that at this point. But we've got this document so far anyway. And but as I said, it is too long, I think. We need to somehow modify it before we send it on and put it out. And I think we do need to talk to whoever in the city as far as the ordinance is concerned. I think the commission might be interested in changes that we're making. And that would be, if I were a commissioner and someone brought this thing to me, the change of the dark sky ordinances, I'd say, well, what changes have you made from what the original one was? That would be my first question. how are you changing it from what it was? Because we have something now in place, although apparently it hasn't been enforced ever, as far as we know. And no one's ever been brought to task for violation of that ordinance. But that would be my question. And when we go to the commission to explain this, I think we need to be well enough versed in our changes to be able to say that. Okay, we've got 18.2 says purpose and intent. Here's how we've changed that. Here's the next one, prohibited lighting. Here's how we're proposing to change that. It will make it easier for them to understand where we're coming from, I think, if we say, this is what the ordinances are now, this is what we're suggesting to make changes in the ordinance.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, building off of what Bill said, a lot of times the way that they do that is they just do the strike through on the old text and then have the new text in bold or underlined, and then then you can just see it in the document that's before you. It's usually how it's done.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe as part of the output of the next month, the stuff that Lexi and Danielle and I are doing, we'll try to present it that way, right? So we'll try to resolve those comments, and then Lexi and Danielle have already done most of that work, because they did take our ordinance and figured out how to essentially shoehorn what the Dark Sky Association suggests into the text and headings of our ordinance. So that shouldn't be a difficult task. We're not doing a rewrite, we're doing an edit. So yeah, that completely tracks. That's a fantastic suggestion. Let me think about that. So how does that impact our outreach? I think I think it doesn't. I mean, I think next month we review that, and then we kind of go to town. I would very much, I think I'd like to have some conversations between now and then without presenting anything that we've generated so far, but just structurally what we should be doing here. So I can definitely go do that on a more informal basis. And then that way when we get official feedback, it's not out of the blue official feedback. I would also like to invite most of the city members that Jonathan mentioned. So, Michael, Shannon, and Courtney, and then probably Matthew, right? Do you pronounce it Matthew? Matthew. It's spelled Matthew.
Yeah, probably him as well.
Yeah, because I think he's taken a lot of interest in board comings and goings. He's the deputy. The deputy building director. Is that something like that, right?
Planner, I don't know, something like that.
Whatever.
Yeah, deputy planner. Anyway, so he's I know he made a splash at the zoning commission meeting last night. So I'm sure. What's that?
I heard that too.
Yeah, well, my wife is on the zoning commission.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
But I mean, he's great, because whoever would be interested at the city in providing input on our process, essentially. And I'd like to get those answers before next month. So really what I'd like to do is maybe go do an informal outreach to them, which anybody should feel free to do. Like, I don't need to be the one necessarily, but to go and just explain the process that we're trying to take. And then by next month, invite them to also review the ordinance text at the same time. So, it'll be sort of game time for us. And we can all do it in real time during the meeting. Like, we do not need to bandy about anymore. We can't just, keep meeting every month. And then, in 6 months, we'll finally have something we're going to review, right? At some point, we just have to get it done. And I also really value the idea of having what the input that the city has to the ordinance text that we've created on the public record, so that we don't have so that the optics are completely transparent, as they should be. That's the spirit of the law. So so does that sound okay as at least an outreach for the next month? Is that we informally go and I can take this task if you want, where we informally go and reach out to Michael Cardos and probably Courtney, because she's a city lawyer and she might have something to say about it, and maybe Matthew, and then just see what they say about the process that we're following, where we're doing the zoning overlay and all that stuff. Also to Jim Berg, the chair of the zoning commission, I can chat with him about it too. But just to go ahead and start, advertising what we're doing. And then next month, review draft ordinance in front of everybody. So we'll take what we reviewed today, we'll take action on the comments, and then we'll actually review it with a super critical eye in front of the city staff as well, hopefully. And then after that, I mean, we could even do a thing where one of us submits it to the commission and just gives them just ask to jump on the agenda on the next commission meeting and give them an idea of what we're planning, and just ask for commissioner feedback. Does any of this sound crazy? Does it sound good? Are these shaking heads, nodding heads?
Sounds good to me.
And then, Jonathan, at that point, do you think that we should go ahead and try to get a blurb in the paper about this? Do we want to reach out that strongly?
At our next meeting?
No, it'd be after our next meeting. I'm just kind of thinking forward facing. I'd like to get the survey into play. I mean, I really see the outreach, I see that the best way that we could do outreach and try to just finish this task, because we can accept input forever, right?
Right.
But my thought is that, okay, we have a survey, we have a single sheet that explains why we're doing it, and we have a draft ordinance and an execution plan. At this point, it's done. We really need the public to comment on this. So do we try to share those links or something like that? Do a little blurb, see if the paper wants to run a blurb about us saying, well, we're updating the lighting ordinance, and here's the survey link, or here's the, or send an email to the message board, here it is, yada, yada. And then we can gather all that public comment and just submit it as printouts as part of our submission to the commission. Say, this is what we recommend. And then this is officially, hopefully, out of our hands, right?
Yeah.
And we're on to other things. Because I don't want to just ruminate on this forever. If we keep this in our inbox forever, so I do think that having a blurb in the paper would probably be our best way of moving the public comment thing very quickly you know, we can talk about the next meeting, whether we have, I mean, we probably need a public comment period the following meeting. So we're talking now October. And then we can vote on whether we send this all on to the commission.
Okay.
I mean, that's a thought. It's
something to follow anyway. And
Yeah.
I think it'll be okay. But I agree, we need to get this thing moving a little faster. A lot of people have done quite a bit of work on it, you can see.
Yep.
Already. So we want to, and you know, part of it is the committee too. People are going to be willing to do work if they see their work being used. But if we were to scrap, you know, one or two of these things that people have put hours and hours in on, then they're going to say, well, why put in so much time?
I know. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Bill. I agree completely. You know, I have a template for our agendas that I use, and as our crap, we're almost out of time. But as I have in here as a standing agenda item in my personal notes, I always put open team building discussion. And one of the things here that I feel like is so important is that we can only control what we can control. I want to get this to a point where we can really celebrate what we've done and give it to the city in a complete way that they hopefully will adopt what we've recommended. And I'd like to actually get this, get the part that we can control as done as possible so we can celebrate what we've done.
Okay, I think it's about time for us to conclude.
It is. So we made it. We went through all of our items. We'll have a final public comment period, if there's any. I'd like to just say gratitude to Lexi for all the work that she's done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lexi.
Thank you.
And thanks, Bill, also for the survey work and all that. And Jonathan, thanks for all the work that you've volunteered to do this session.
And thank you to you too.
Absolutely.
Electronics and tech and aspects of it and leadership.
Oh, well, you know, it's any opportunity to use an overcomplicated software solution, I'm all over it. You know? Then do we have a motion to
I so move. We adjourn.
adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, yay.
Aye.
Meeting over.
All right.